And we're back. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dark Phoenix Gaming, and you are watching Mass Effect 1 Legendary Edition with Vin Shepard. So, in our last episode, we headed off to a ship filled with biotic extremists who'd taken some diplomat prisoner, and we rescued him. We also learned that biotics are really cheap bastards, and when you fight them in close quarters, they will stun-lock the ever-living shit out of you, and just keep knocking you over and kill you, because that's what happened to us. Translation: biotics OP, please nerf. Anyways, in this episode, we're going to take a little bit of a break from the high-octane action bits and just spend some time chatting with the crew. Because we haven't really had any conversation bits with people so far, and I wanted to change that. Also, in the interest of full disclosure, this episode is being re-recorded because of the way I stopped the recording in OBS on my first recording. It didn't capture the audio properly, and part of it was corrupted and just ended up being not aligned with the video properly. So re-recording it is the easiest way to fix that. Anyways, this episode we are going to hit up Presley, Caden, and Liara for our conversations. So hey there, Presley, what you got to say?
If anyone has to take over for Captain Anderson, I'm glad it's you. I'm not sure about having non-humans on our ship, though.
Come on now, Presley, they're on our side.
We're all on the same team here, Presley.
With all due respect, ma'am, that's what they said about Nihilus. Look how that turned out.
Nihilus got shot in the back. That's not exactly the same thing. But come on. If you have a problem with aliens being on the Normandy, I'd like to hear about it now. Go ahead, air your xenophobia.
Speak freely, Presley. I want to know if you have a problem with non-humans.
It's not that, Commander. Humanity has always handled its own problems. Saren attacked one of our colonies. We should be the ones to stop him. We don't need their help.
Well, maybe we don't need their help, and maybe we could accomplish this without them, but it'd be a lot more of a pain in the ass and a lot harder to actually accomplish things if we did that, so maybe don't go around turning away help just because you don't like the source of that help is a good policy to follow, I would say.
Some people think asking for help is a sign of weakness. That's just being stupid and stubborn. No matter how strong you are, allies can make you stronger.
I guess so. Maybe I'm just stuck in the old ways of thinking. But don't worry, Commander, this won't be a problem.
Good, I hope not. We can leave it at that then. Sounds like he just needed to air some grievances, which is perfectly fair. Now, time for the old tell me about yourself. So, tell me about you, Presley.
How did you end up assigned to the Normandy?
I signed up with the Alliance as a navigator right out of
Phrased
school.
it a bit
following
more
in my grandfather's
diplomatically
footsteps,
and
my first posting was on the
all
Azure
that
Code.
than I did.
We were one of the first reinforcements to arrive at Elysium after the Blitz hit. Those raiders were no match for an Alliance frigate. Of course, the only reason the colony was still standing was because of you, Commander. I can't believe you held out as long as you did.
Wow. Oh yeah, that's right. This is one of those things you get it a little bit here and there throughout the story where your backstory will make a tiny iota of difference in the grand scheme of things. But there are conversations and such that play out differently if you have a different backstory. Presley commenting on us being the hero of the Skillian Blitz and all that here is one of those things, because if you watch my original Mass Effect playthrough, the non-legendary edition version with Melinda Shepard, and we had the Ruthless background there. Because for that we weren't on Elysium and might not necessarily know what was going on beyond the broad strokes, for that Presley takes the time to explain exactly what was happening in a bit of detail. But here, because it's part of your backstory, obviously you wouldn't need something that you experienced explained to you, so he doesn't do that. Other than that, there's stuff like the backstory quest we get, which is different depending on what happened, and stuff like that, which is kind of neat, admittedly. So yeah, how'd you get on the Normandy after that, though? Oh, Presley? Kinda curious.
How'd you end up on the Normandy?
I got my officer's commission after Elysium. Must have made an impression on the right people. Captain asked for me when he was picking his crew.
Okay. That's kinda cool. Good to know.
Carry on, Presley.
That'll be all.
Yes, ma'am.
That will be all. Now, I'm gonna talk to Joker on this occasion. Saving him for later on. I was looking to see if there's anything up there I could add to the codex. Because we will have another codex reading entry at some point. I just wanted to collect some more entries. Okay. Personnel manual. Some expa. Yeah. The way the ship's laid out is a little different to what I'm used to. I'm more accustomed to the layout you get in Mass Effect 2 and 3, which this is quite different from, just because Mass Effect 2 is the game in the series that I've played the most times, so I have the most experience with that ship layout. But it's not like that matters overly much, so we should probably just shut up about ship layout and have a chat with Caden.
Commander, do you have a minute?
Of course. I got some time. What you need?
I always make time for my officers.
Off the record, I think there's something wrong here. This Saren is looking for records on some kind of galactic extinction, but we can't get backup from the Council? Sorry, Commander. There's writing on the wall here, but someone isn't reading it.
Oh yeah, I hear you. Seems like the Council doesn't actually want to admit there's a problem. Which is why a lot of people say they're pretty fucking stupid. But, to be fair, they are politicians. And there's a long tradition in politics of kicking the can down the road for the next administration to deal with, and hoping you won't have to address a problem. Which seems like what they're trying to do a little bit. We don't want to deal with Saren potentially causing the galactic apocalypse, so if we pretend nothing's wrong, then maybe it won't be a problem until we get replaced, and we won't have to deal with it. Sounds about right, honestly.
The Council doesn't want to believe anything's wrong. I'd call it human nature, but...
I hear you. It just seems like a group that's been around as long as the Council should see this coming. I mean, it's funny, we finally get
They're
out
politicians,
there, and the final
Caden.
frontier
They don't
was
give a
already
fuck.
settled, and the residents don't even seem impressed by the view. or the dangers.
Well, that's a cute way to look at it, I guess.
Well, well, you're a romantic. Did you
He does
sign
sort
up
of
for
give
the
off that
dream, Malenko?
vibe, doesn't he?
Secure a man's future in space?
Yeah, I read a lot of those books when I was a kid, where the hero goes to space to prove himself worthy of a woman he loves, or, you know, for justice. Maybe I was a romantic in the beginning, but I thought about it after brain camp. Biotic acclimation and temperance training. I'm not looking for the dream. I just want to do some good. See what's out here. Sorry if I got too informal. Protocol wasn't a big focus back in Bot.
Well, wanting to do some good, there are worse reasons to sign up with the military, to be fair. And don't worry about it. I was never too bothered with protocol myself either. It exists and you go through the motions with the brasses around, but beyond that, who cares?
Tell me about it.
Biotic acclimation and temperance didn't last past the airlock. To the kids they hauled in, it was brain camp. Sorry, hauled in is unkind. We were encouraged to commit to an evaluation
hauled in
of our
seems pretty
abilities
accurate,
so
to be
an
honest.
understanding of biotics could be compiled. There are worse results of accidental exposure to element 0 in the womb. Beats the brain tumors some kids grew up with.
Yes, the air quotes around accidental are setting off some alarm bells. It sounds to me like you have some doubts about the quote-unquote accidental nature of some of these exposures, eh, Caden?
Is there some question about how you were exposed?
My mother was downwind of a transport crash. It was before there were human biotics, a little after the discovery of the Martian ruins. It only gets iffy around 63 when kinetics was running out of first-gen subjects. Until then, they'd relied on accidentals. A bunch of guys in suits show up at your door after school, and next thing you know, you're out on Jump Zero.
Yeah. If things start to get iffy around the time the first generation of true accidentals start to run out, that would tend to lend some credence to the idea of engineered accidentals, let's just call them, would it not?
Jump Zero is Gagarin Station, right? What's it like?
Yeah, that's the official name. Biggest and farthest facility we had for decades. Right on the termination shock, the outer edge of the solar system. It's where they did all the Goose Chase FTL research before we caught on to using mass effect fields. It was a sterile research platform when I was there.
Goose Chase FTL research, you know. I think this is the first time that gets mentioned, that there was research being done into other forms of FTL before our humans figured out how to use Mass Effect fields and the relays. It's interesting. Makes you think, even after you discover the mass relays and start using them and travel and stuff, why would you stop doing the Goose Chase FTL research and not keep looking into an alternative form of faster-than-light travel? That seems like a rather bizarre decision, to just stop one form of research just because you've found an alternative that seems to work. But maybe that's just me. You must have had friends out there, right? At least you weren't totally on your own.
There were other kids in the same boat, right? At least you weren't alone out there.
That's true. We did have a little circle that'd get together every night before lights out. We didn't have much to do, though. It was a research platform then, and kinetics kept Jump Zero off the extranet to prevent leaks.
To prevent leaks, or to stop you from reporting anything you thought was wrong to the authorities?
Then you must have had plenty of time to get to know each other.
Yeah, we'd sit around and bull every night after dinner, play cards or network games. There was this girl named Rana, who had a little circle grow up around her. She was from Turkey. Her family was very rich. But she was smart and charming as hell. Beautiful. But not stuck up about it. Like you, I guess. Yeah.
Very bizarre way to do things. Thanks, Caden. Honestly, if you're trying to flirt with me by talking about a past love, then you're doing badly at it. Sorry.
Sounds like she was special to you.
But apparently Shepard's not so
Maybe
bothered
she
by it.
felt the same, but things never felt together. Training, you know.
Yeah. That's how it goes sometimes. And what was this you mentioned about? What was this about intentional exposures?
You know of any intentional exposures for certain?
No one knows. Doesn't mean they didn't happen. As big as the exposures were, it was hard to track down accidentals. It was different then. No one knew the potential, so there wasn't a lot of regulation. Anything Kinetics did was gold. I'm not saying they intentionally detonated drives over our outposts, but in retrospect, they were damn quick on the scene.
Yeah, looking back, that would seem a little suspicious. If some company looking into this new technology was just magically able to find sources of the thing they're looking for, and they just seemed unnaturally quick about locating it, then that would look kind of suspicious after the fact, wouldn't it? And that's sort of what's going on here, it sounds like.
Jump Zero's a long way from home. What was it like?
The grand gateway to humanity looks a lot better in the vids. Anyway, this was supposed to be a casual debrief, not a bull session about stuff that happened years ago.
I wanted to get to know you a little better, that's all. Thanks for the talk, Caden.
Well, you're welcome, man. You, make a habit of getting this personal with everyone?
Well, what do you think, Caden? What do you think?
No, I don't. We'll talk again later.
I'll need some time to process that, Commander. But, yeah, I'd like that.
So, in a few missions' time, then, Caden. See you then. Yeah. I like Caden, to be honest. I know a lot of people who think he is rather boring, to put too fine a point on it, and they're not wrong. Compared to a lot of other characters in fiction, Caden is probably among the less interesting of the lot, but I wouldn't call him boring exactly. He's just very straightforward and tends to follow a certain stereotype to a T, that of the dependable soldier with the tragic backstory kind of thing. He tends to follow that stereotype very well, rather than branching out too much, which I think is why he gets seen as boring by a lot of people. Anyways, we have Liara to speak to next. Chakwas won't have anything new to say to us. We exhausted all of her dialogue basically after Eden Prime when we're chatting about random stuff. Hey, Liara.
I never properly thanked you for saving me from the Geth Commander. If you hadn't shown up,
Don't mention it. I'm just glad we managed to pull it off.
I'm just glad we got there in time.
So am I. I know you took a chance bringing me aboard this ship. I have seen the way your crew looks at me. They do not trust me. But I am not like Venezia. I will do whatever I can to help you stop Saren. I promise.
I know you will. I know.
Don't worry, Liara. I trust you. I know you won't let me down.
It means a lot to hear you say that, Commander. Thank you.
Okay. Now, with the investigations with Liara, and I found this out when I was doing the last attempt at recording, you have to ask about Asari culture first and Benezia second. Otherwise, it'll lock you out of continuing the talk about you dialogue until you exit the conversation and start a new one. It's very weird, but if you want to be able to do it all in one conversation loop, then you have to do it that way. So, why don't you tell me a little more about the Asari, girl? I haven't met many of you before, if any.
I'd like to know more about the Asari.
We were the first species to discover the Citadel. We were instrumental in forming the Council, and we always strive to be the voice of peaceful cooperation in galactic disputes.
Yes.
My people
The
believe
race
we
of
are all part of
interstellar
a single galactic
diplomats.
community. Each species contributes something to the greater whole. Although we seek to understand other species, it seems few of them seek to understand us. The galaxy is filled with rumors and misinformation about my people.
What kind of rumors?
Like what?
Most of the inaccuracies are centered around our mating rituals. My species is monogendered. Male and female have no real meaning for us. We still require a partner
Yes,
to
let's talk about
reproduce.
Asari
This
sex.
second parent, however, may be of any species and any gender.
Wait, what? How in the fuck does that work?
I don't understand. Your species can mate with anyone?
Mating is not quite proper term, not as you understand it. Physical contact may or may not be involved, but it is not an essential element of the union. The true connection is mental. Our physiology allows us to meld with other beings. We can touch the very depths of their minds. We explore the genetic memory of their species. We share the most basic elements of their individual and racial identities. We then pass these traits onto our daughters. It is how we learn to grow as a species and how we develop a greater understanding of other races.
What happens to your partner after the union?
Every relationship is different. Some unions are a single encounter with both parents parting ways afterwards. Others can be more long-term. Sometimes an Asari and her partner will stay together for many decades.
Yeah, well, Asari live a lot longer than most of the races, don't they? How's that work out?
The Asari live for 1,000 years. What happens when
Exactly.
their couple dies?
Few sapient species live as long as my kind. We have learned to take a philosophical approach to our unions. We do not focus on the inevitable loss of our partners. Instead, we enjoy the time we spend with them. And
We don't
after
have any
life, a part of them lives on
Asari-Solarian
in us.
relationships, though.
Union is a connection that transcends both time and space.
Yeah, you know, this whole talk of physical intimacy may or may not be involved and melding and all that. This is putting me in mind of some stuff from Greek mythology, actually. And if you've ever read the Percy Jackson Olympians books, you'll probably get this reference, but in those books, it's set in a modern-ish time, but with gods still existing and demigods like children of gods and goddesses, as if you aren't familiar with that term. And it has children of Athena in it, which is interesting because she's supposed to be a maiden goddess, but as is described in some of them, they're literally brain children. Like, she meets someone she likes and thinks them into existence. I'm oversimplifying, but yes. And that's what the Asari melding to have kids reminds me of.
Do you know who Matriarch Benezia chose as her partner?
She rarely spoke of her partner. Though I know my father, if you want to use that term, was another Asari.
Yeah, well, I'm not gonna ask if they can do that, because it would make sense that they could, given the Asari still exists as a species, and didn't die out before discovering FTL travel. I guess you don't know who it was, then.
Benezia never told you her partner's name?
Union with our own kind is no longer common, not for the purposes of reproduction. Most Asari believe it weakens our species. Asari daughters inherit racial traits from the father species. If both parents are Asari, then nothing has been gained, or so conventional wisdom would hold. I am what is sometimes called a pureblood, though no Asari would ever be cruel enough to say the word to my face. It is a great insult among my people. It is possible Benezia's partner was embarrassed by their union. She may have been too ashamed to publicly acknowledge me as her offspring.
Now, that is interesting. The concept of pure blood being a bad thing. Now, given the time and era I grew up in, I mostly associate pure blood with stuff like Harry Potter and high fantasy and things, but I'm sure you can find the concept of our blood is pure and racial purity in like science fiction and stuff more often, but it's usually used sorry, got interrupted there for a second. As I was saying, I just find the idea that racial purity and purity of your bloodline is viewed as a bad thing or something to be avoided to be such an interesting way of bucking the stereotype that you see in so much of fiction. And they do that a lot in this series in the most unexpected places, and it's really neat that they'll either do the opposite of a stereotype or use one in an interesting way. Like you have the Asari, for instance, who are the stereotypical diplomat race, which that's a stereotype that comes up a lot. You have a race or group defined by a single characteristic. I mean, just look at the Mandalorians and Star Wars, for example. They are the caricature example of a warrior race. You have that with the Asari, with diplomats, but in a lot of ways they take it and use it in more interesting ways, which I find a more intriguing way to handle that than just not using the our species or group is defined by this one trait thing at all. But enough about that.
Maybe she wanted to meet you but couldn't. Maybe something could have happened to her. Maybe she passed away.
You might be right. I hope you are. But I have no way to know for sure. Benezia never spoke of her partner. Whatever happened, it caused her too much pain to dwell on it. She raised me by herself, though that is not uncommon. Many Asari raise their children alone, particularly if the father species is short-lived. Often the partner will pass on long before the child reaches maturity.
Speaking of Benezia...
Do you know why Benezia joined up with Saren?
I don't understand it. She was always outspoken about the need for the Asari to become more involved in shaping galactic events. Maybe she thought allying herself with Saren would somehow be for the greater good in the long run. At least I hope so.
Maybe she's just evil. I mean, come on. How much of an asshole do you have to be to tell a kid, because remember, by Asari standards, Liara is basically a teenager. How much of a dick do you have to be to tell her maybe her mom is evil? I mean, come on. I don't care how renegade you are, that's just cruel.
This hurts you, doesn't it?
None of this makes any sense to me. I have not spoken to Benezia in many years, but I know her, and this was not like her. Something changed.
Well, I would like to talk about you now, sweetheart.
Tell me about yourself, Liara.
Me? I am afraid I am not very interesting, Commander. I spend most of my time on remote digs, unearthing mundane items buried in long-forgotten Prothean ruins.
Well, that sounds like you must be pretty lonely out there.
Sounds dangerous. And lonely.
Sometimes I would run afoul of indigenous life forms or stumble across a small band of mercenaries or privateers. But I was always careful. Until the Geth followed me to Artemis Tau. I never found myself in any situation my biotics could not handle. As for the solitude, well, that is one aspect that most appealed to me. Sometimes I just need to get away from other people.
Sounds like you're not much for socializing or interacting with others, then.
You don't like other people?
I suppose it comes from being a matriarch's daughter. People expected me to follow in Benezia's footsteps. They wanted me to become a leader of our people. Matriarchs guide their followers into the future. They seek the truth of what is yet to come. Maybe that's why I became so interested in the secrets of the past. It sounds so foolish when I say it out loud. It sounds like I became an archaeologist simply to spite Benezia.
I don't see anything foolish in that myself.
All children rebel against their parents. It's a natural part of growing up.
Aha, you share the wisdom of the matriarch, Shepard. That is exactly what Benezia said when I told her of my decision. But there was more to it than that. I felt drawn to the past. The Protheans were these wondrous, mysterious figures. I wanted to know everything about them. That is why I find you so fascinating. You were marked by the beacon on Eden Prime. You were touched by working Prothean technology.
Wait, I'm fascinating? What?
Sounds like you want to dissect me in a lab somewhere.
What? No, I did not mean to insinuate. I never meant to offend you, Shepard. I only meant that you would be an interesting specimen for an in-depth study. No, that's even worse.
Okay. As amusing it is to watch Liara lose her shit over a joke, you need to calm the hell down, girl. I was kidding.
Calm down, Liara. I was only joking.
Joking? Oh, by the goddess, how could I be so dense? You must think I am a complete and utter fool. Now you know why I prefer to spend my time in the field with data disks and computers. I always seem to say something embarrassing around other people. Please, just pretend this conversation never happened.
Alright, and speaking of conversations, that's the end
I
of
should
this
go.
one.
Goodbye, Shepard.
Oh, I love Liara. She's so shy and awkward around everyone else. She's just so adorable. She's like that adorable younger sister who always manages to say something awkward and potentially offensive, but only realizes they've maybe offended someone after the fact. I love her. I really do. But I think that will do it for this episode. So, this has been Dark Phoenix Gaming, and you have been watching Mass Effect 1 Legendary Edition with Vin Shepard. If you've enjoyed this, please leave a like, comment down below, and subscribe to see more like this. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time. See you then, folks. See you then.